Get out the insurance cards, get out the co-pays. The office is open, my friends, as this video is brought to you by drroto.com.
Hello and welcome to Hoops Hub, episode 2. Gentlemen, it's been a week and we are pumped up. We got hot takes galore. I'm Brian Armetta, joined by Zeke Cohen, Kevin Amoroso. Gentlemen, what a week. A lot to talk about. I feel like we've learned a lot, but I feel like also everything we've learned will be irrelevant in the span of 2 weeks. I feel like this is just an analogy for sports media being oversaturated. Anyways, we're glad you're here. So a lot to get to. Today's going to be kind of a hot take show. So I don't even know if we necessarily believe all of these to be true. We're going to kind of take it progressively from a little mild, something you'll get at B-dubs, eating with your friends, and then we got some scorching takes. We got your mouth is going to be burning for days. When you hear these takes, I don't know, just don't shoot the messengers. Okay. That's my only request. So I'm going to get started with one of my more mild takes. And we'll see how we process that. Ja Morant and Desmond Bane are the NBA's best scoring duo. This might be too hot for mild, but last night was one of the best games we might get all year. The Grizz take down the Nets 134-124. You normally on a night where Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant both score 37 points, that should be enough for a win. But Bane and Morant both scored 38, led the Grizz to a win. Ja Morant kind of baited Ben Simmons into a foul out, and I'm sure we'll get to Ben at some point, either this show or next. So, guys, am I crazy? Is this like a possibility?
Talent-wise, individually, no. Right? But I guess on that team, the way they've been performing this year, I can understand where you are coming up with that take. I would say, listen, anybody like LeBron James and Anthony Davis, it sounds crazy because Lakers are terrible, but you're going to tell me that individually that Ja Morant and Desmond Bane are better scorers? Possibly, but I wouldn't make that take yet.
I think the case for why they could be is because let's look at the system they're in. I mean, the Grizzlies are fast, they're fun, they're young, exciting. I feel like Bane, in order for the Grizzlies to really solidify their place as a top 3 team in the West for years to come, Bane has to step up and be that second guy. I just don't buy the fact that it's going to be JJJ anymore. Look, I loved him when he got drafted, but point blank fact of the matter is he's just going to be that defensive glue guy for you who could potentially stretch the floor, but isn't really going to give you enough scoring volume. So if this is going to be the first year that Desmond Bane, Ja Morant take over the league tour, I'm ready for it. And I can see it happening. My question is Desmond's efficiency and volume going to be there to kind of help the Jazz or the Grizzlies get to where they need to be? I'm not sure, but it's going to be damn exciting to watch for sure.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think this is true just because, and it is funny you brought up the Lakers, Kevin, because that was my next point. I actually think the two duos that could challenge the Grizzlies for this title the most are both winless right now, I believe. I don't know if the Sixers got a win yet.
Yeah,
But right now, I'd say Harden and Embiid. Okay, the Sixers did get a win yesterday. I must have missed that. They took down the Pacers, so that's really like half a win. But anyways, Harden and Embiid and LeBron and Davis, I still would say I eke them out a little above Desmond and Ja. I also would throw in Edwards and KAT into that mix. If Kawhi was playing a full slate, and we will get to that later, I could also consider Paul George and Kawhi. But I think they're right in that conversation. I really wouldn't be surprised if this is true by the end of the year. I'm not ready to I'm not ready to lock this in yet, but I think it's reasonable. They're both fantastic players, and I also like that they both kind of fill in the gaps in the other. Ja isn't a fantastic shooter, but he's amazing at driving. Bane, very good spot up guy, but he's also kind of physical. He can hold his own, so he's not just a shooter. They're a lot of fun to watch, and the system's clearly catered to their offensive skills. All right, Kevin, what else you got?
So here's my first mild take. It's really nothing too crazy, but I think it shouldn't exist because Steven Silas sucks. So my take is that Houston Rockets will continue to play and give minutes to veteran players because Steven Silas has a history of doing so. And I think that with the draft class and, Victor Wembanyama at the top, I think the Rockets might want to lose some games. And we'll see guys like Alperen Sengun and Tari Eason, who had very good summer leagues. Well, Tari Eason had a great summer league, and Alperen Sengun, we thought was going to be, a great fantasy asset this year. He was going about 60th to 70th in the drafts. I think those guys will continue to struggle because of not how they play, but minutes.
Yeah, Sengun was even flirting with top 50 in some drafts. So definitely not ideal to see Bruno Fernando starting the season. Yeah. Now Fernando just got injured, and they're kind of forced to roll a bit more with Sengun. But you're right. They don't have a lot of incentive to play the kids. Now, does that mean that they'll completely stunt the development of two guys that I think we're all high on? Eason was definitely on my radar. I know he was on your radar, Kevin. But yeah, I mean, he had a fantastic summer league, but summer league you kind of take with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I don't think it'll stunt their development per se. I think they have a lot of time to develop. It's my question is about Tari Eason. My worry about him is like when Dejounte Tate comes back. I know that sounds a little crazy because Dejounte Tate is kind of just an average player, but I think Steven Silas is a little crazy and might give Tari Eason a little bit of a bench role, a little bit of a back-end rotation role. That might hurt his development, but right now, no. I think they're okay. Fantasy-wise, they're just not options, where Tari Eason isn't an option, and Alperen Sengun, I think, might be a little disappointing.
I have a kind of crazy take on this. I actually kind of think it's part of a method to his madness. I think that with such a young team, when you're trying to cultivate a culture and something to kind of keep for years to come, I think it's very important to not necessarily just give the entire reins to the youngins. I think it's very important that you have to kind of like show a specific attitude and like work ethic necessary to be able to have such a high role in your team. I think that's kind of why. And like, look, with a lot of these Rockets young talent, like they are ready. They can carry the ship. And like, look, you would see a lot of other teams take the opposite perspective and let the young guys just run and see whatever you get at the end of the year. And especially with Victor this year being the coveted prize of the offseason, you'll see a lot more teams doing that. But I really do think, at least with the Rockets starting all these vets, that it is just something that's going to stay for the start of the season. I can't really see it lasting going into the next year, but I think I'm just trying to create the conversation here. It could be a part of his method of like bringing the best out of them long term.
Of course. Yeah. I just don't like it for my fantasy prospects because I like Tari Eason. So
we don't care about real life basketball. We care about fantasy. What show do you think this is? These are both great points. I understand Silas is trying to build a culture, but at the same time, like, I don't know. I just see a lot of stupid coaching decisions around the league. And I know it's easy for the guy at home who doesn't do this, who hasn't picked up a ball really since high school, to criticize. But what are we doing? Tari Eason's really good. Sengun is a per 36 monster. I mean, look at someone like Isaiah Hartenstein, who's really good in limited minutes with the Clippers. He's gone to the Knicks. He's looked fantastic. He probably should be starting over decent center in Mitchell Robinson. Anyways, kind of lost the plot there. But I just see these weird coaching decisions with guys who have statistical, it's not like we live in the 80s anymore. We have statistical and eye test knowledge that these guys are good. Your team gets better. Plus minus is a flawed stat, but it tells a lot. Tari Eason, Sengun, I want to see more of them. Now, is there a method to the madness? I'm sure. But to be fair, the Rockets have not looked that good. So, I still like the long-term future of this team. How can you not? There's a lot to love, but it is interesting to see how these minutes are going to be balanced. I just would like to know what Sengun can do with 30-plus minutes a night, just so we know. If this team's really serious about tanking for Victor, you should also find out how good your current center is, and I'm not sure we're totally getting that right now. Zeke, mild take.
Mild take. Kawhi coming off the bench for the start of the year, in my opinion, it's probably best for the Clips long term. It's going to be terrible if you own him in fantasy, though. Look, Kawhi Leonard, he was a top 2-round player. Anybody would have taken him then. But when you drafted him, did you really think that he would only be getting 21 minutes a game to start the season, coming off the bench?
You took him in our league.
I took him in our league. Yeah, I'm living it. I am suffering through this at the
That's
moment.
an important side note. The people need to know that.
In the second round.
The day he had his opening game, I'm
would've done
waking up in the morning. I'm thinking, oh, he's going to get 30-plus minutes a night. Amazing. Awesome. Nah, midday. Get the report. Kawhi's coming off the bench to start of the season. I'm like, oh, boy, here we go. And then he had the back-to-back situation. They benched him the second day. I'm like, oh, boy, here we go again. It's the Toronto days all over again. I'm nervous, in my opinion, because they don't need to rush him back. Like, look, the Clippers are the deepest team in the league, or the deepest team, in the entire league probably. There is no rush to give your star player 30 minutes a night yet. I think within a couple months, we'll see him get a more consistent workload. But don't be surprised if he doesn't play back-to-backs for the entire season. This is a guy who, at this point in his career, coming out of his peak a bit, especially coming off these injuries that he's had, he isn't going to be that guy anymore, unfortunately. And I'm going to have to live through that this entire season now. If he's going to get the consistent enough minutes, he'll still be that guy. But realistically, the Clippers this year feel like a team that has a roster that's constructed to get it done this year. And in order to do that, they have to make sure that Kawhi's minutes are limited enough to the fact where he will be healthy for an entire playoff run. So I got to hear what you guys think. I just rambled a lot about my fantasy sorrow at the moment.
I think these hot takes are really elevated when people know that we have skin in the game. And you most certainly have skin in this game. Kawhi's a very interesting case. I think it's important context-wise to know that his injury happened 16 months ago. And these injuries usually, torn ACL does not usually take 16 months. It usually is much quicker recovered. And he pretty much is recovered. You know, knock on wood, I pray he doesn't re-injure it, but he's recovered. Yeah. They're playing it safe. And I think part of it is the West sucks. If they were in the East, I think you might actually have to play him like 25 minutes minimum a night. I don't know if they have to do that in the West. The West blows. They could cakewalk. I love some of the additions they've made. They have maybe the deepest bench in the game. So the Clippers are in a really good spot that other teams do not have the luxury of doing. You know, I only think teams like Milwaukee or Golden State could even like get away with something like this. And even then. So that's worth noting. So is it good for LA? Yes. Is it bad for fantasy? Yes. But I also think he's going to have to get ramped up. They're not going to do this the whole year. You know, Kawhi, I think we think Kawhi is passive just because he doesn't talk a lot. Like, Kawhi doesn't want to play a full season off the bench. This guy's a superstar. It's not going to happen. Yeah. But it might be another month.
Yeah. And just to add, I think the Clippers are a top 3 championship team or championship odds team with Kawhi fully healthy.
I agree. Yeah. So, it probably is smart, mainly because these games don't really matter. Oh, no, we're a 4th seed instead of a 2 seed because we sat Kawhi. Who cares? They still have great championship odds, as Kevin said. All right. Let's heat things up a little more, right? Let's drop some Tabasco on the tongue, shall we? Pascal Siakam is better than Karl Anthony Towns in real life, in fantasy. I'm locking it in. Yes, I own Siakam. Yes, I told everyone not to draft Kat. Yes, I'm biased. Tell me why I'm wrong or right.
I buy it, from my opinion. Look, I love Kat. However, I felt like I've just seen the same thing out of the guy for the past 4 seasons now, and I'm just banking on this one truly breakout year where we get everything we thought he was going to be at coming out of Kentucky. But at the end of the day, feels like Kat's already been in the league 8-9 years now.
Pretty much has, right?
Right,
yeah.
I think
2012 Kentucky,
2015, I believe. 2015.
Yeah, wait, I'm mixing up with Davis. Duh. Yeah, he's close to it. Not there yet, but yeah.
Yeah, I just feel like at this point, Siakam, almost each year he's been in the league, he's been able to expand his game more and more. And the start of this season, I mean, look, it's only been 4 games, but he's looked electric on both ends of the floor. I feel like he has way better two-way potential. I feel like Gobert coming into Minnesota now, it's going to kind of limit Kat's role a bit more because it looks like they're going to start utilizing Rudy in both ways. I mean, offense and defense. I mean, he's getting good volume right now, it looks like. So I'm ready to kind of say Siakam brings more to the table than Kat. And also it hurts a bit that Kat also was sick at the beginning of the year. He lost like 30 pounds. He looks a little frail right now at the moment. I know he's still a big body. There's a huge frame to fill in, but I mean, I think at this point, I'm ready to say that there's more upside with Siakam.
Yeah, I agree. I wanted to just add, like, I agree with your Rudy Gobert points. Just talking about from a roster point, like, where's Karl Anthony Towns' upside on offense? You know, as a scorer. I mean, his usage is only going to be so high. His rebounds are only going to be so high with Rudy Gobert there. And we got another year of Anthony Edwards getting better. We have D'Angelo Russell, who's another option, another scoring option, who's going to take another high usage role. I just don't. I mean, I love Kat as a player. I think he's a really good offensive center, but I mean, I think his ceiling this year will be providing a value at which you would want at round 2, and which you would want at round 2. I think he's around there. Good, very good, but not a first round pick. Siakam's better. Love Siakam.
Yeah, there's a pun we can make for Siakam that we won't do. So the thing I love about Towns, like, I do genuinely like Karl Anthony Towns. I don't want to make it seem like I'm coming after him. Fantasy-wise, he's uniquely gifted when it comes to giving you value at three-pointers, three-points made, compared to other centers you'd slot in there. He's going to give you, like, over 20 points per game. I have full confidence in that this year. But, again, Zeke and I were talking about this the other day. It's kind of like they built their team this year, and I'm not saying it was the wrong move for Minnesota, but they built their team to mask over Kat's weaknesses because they got tired of waiting for him to improve on them. It's like, we always wanted Kat to become this tougher, more traditional center. Well, we just got a really good defensive center to do all those things, all the nitty-gritty stuff, so you can just hang out and shoot. And makes sense roster-wise. Doesn't really make sense first-round pick-wise, asset management-wise, but that's another story. But in terms of what the Timberwolves will be this year, yeah, they don't need Towns to get 10 boards a night. I'd be really surprised to see him get more than 8 boards a game this year. Call me crazy. Barring or Gobert injury, I mean, he's just not going to – and it's not like Rudy is, like, spacing the floor that much. I mean, he's a good rim runner, but he can't shoot. So the center of the lane is going to be clogged. Kat really doesn't have a role – like down low picking up boards. And that was like a big part of his value. He's a double-double machine. Not really anymore. So then you look at Siakam, and he's come into the season with the goal of being like a top 10, top 5 player. Now, that's a little too rich for my blood, but Pascal's still fantastic. What I love is he gives you really good value with stuff like steals because he's such a hybrid kind of player. Because he doesn't look like a center, but he has center eligibility on most platforms. He can run the floor. He's a good ball handler. He's a triple-double monster. Field goal percentage, the percentage numbers in general aren't going to be as good as Kat, but I think almost everywhere else you're going to get more of an upside. The assists are real. Nick Nurse plays his starters more than anyone other than maybe Tom Thibodeau, and even then. So you know that he's a lock for like 35-plus minutes a night. So there's a lot to like about Siakam. Hopefully Scotty Barnes' injury isn't too serious because he came out of last night's game. We'll get to that in news and notes. So barring anything crazy, I think the situation is better for Siakam. I think that team's dependent on him, and we love our high-usage all-stars. Kevin, another take.
Heating it up a little bit, huh?
Yeah, we're heating it up. Oh, yeah.
Right. My next take is that defensive centers in this league will continue to lose value as they have been in fantasy drafts from year to year in fantasy drafts. So there's been this trend in basketball where guards are getting more physical. They're getting more athletic, which means they get more rebounds, they get more defensive stats, and they're shooting more and higher usage, everything. So guys like Clint Capella, guys like Mitchell Robinson, who are drafted to be good defensive centers that could get you defensive stats and high rebound guys, they just won't be I don't think they'll be as useful as they have been in the past, because I think this year guards are the way to go for rebounds and defensive stats. So that's my take.
I think this is interesting. This is like a bigger, like, the way the game is changing kind of conversation.
Yeah. I'm not necessarily sure if you could get me to 100% agree on that. I do think that, a defensive-minded rebounding center still brings some value. It just depends on how much they're going to get utilized during a game. I agree with what you're saying. I mean, like, look at the Grizzlies for an example. Like, you have guards there who could rebound, who are going to pad you up with defensive stats, but their bigs really aren't going to get as much. So, in my opinion, I mean, like, look at guys like Andre Drummond, for example. They're almost at this point, like, irrelevant. You're just kind of banking on them to get you rebounds, at least if you're going to draft them in a category. So, I personally think that there is still some value in these kinds of centers. I think it just depends on how much they're going to get used in a game. Because again, look, like, teams want to play faster. And if you're going to have a big guy on the floor who only brings you a very specific type of skill set, you're not really going to want to play them if you're going to have a whole bunch of young guys running the whole game. So, yeah, I'm not really sure.
I mean, and isn't that kind of the point? The way centers are being drafted this year, Mitch Robinson was going top 80 in drafts again. You have guys like Steven Adams. I mean, I don't know, Steven Adams, Clint Capella going top 100. And I'm not saying that these guys are, I mean, obviously they're not expected to be these great fantasy assets. They're only should be expected to be, top 60, top 70 players at best. I just think because of that, as you said, limited playing time, I think they I just don't think they'll be that great in fantasy. Where's the upside there? I mean, what's Clint Capella's ceiling? We were talking, what, 10 rebounds a game at best? I mean, he's playing, 24, 25 minutes. He's not getting more minutes on this team. Dejounte Murray, they just acquired Dejounte Murray, had Trae Young. They're a run and gun team. Pace and space, young and gun, run and gun team. Wow. Young run and gun team. Nice. Anyway, I just think Clint, they're those type of guys. Just even in the Knicks, they're running the ball more. Jalen Brunson picks up this offense, and I think Mitchell Robinson is just what's his ceiling? You tell me. It's top 90. I mean, he's going to get a block and a half a game with the minutes he's going to get. I really, for those reasons, I think these centers are replaceable. Those rebounds are replaceable by these young guards that are running the floor and are more athletic and can get 4 or 5 rebounds a game, and you stack your roster with that to supplement rebounds, and I think you're good.
So here's a follow-up question to that. If you are one of those owners at this point in the season and you're kind of on top of this trend and you realize it and see it within your roster, how do you want to move at that point? I mean, are you going to try and flip these guys, make a case to a buddy of yours like, hey, there's some upside here? Are you going to try and work the wire at this point?
Unless I'm incredibly dependent on blocks. And that is my main point, is that I think getting players that can do both, this guy gets me blocks, steals, but he's also a 20-point per game scorer. I don't want to roster guys who are only good for blocks like Mitch. I think I would agree with.
I want to respond to that. That's the funny thing about fantasy. Even though overall sometimes there'll be that's my take. Well, some centers are less valuable. Sometimes there are trends in leagues where guys are getting drafted for assists a lot and points are getting drafted a lot, and then there's this kind of empty vacuum where you can find value in a rebounds or blocks because guys aren't focusing on those categories as much. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't think we're in that. I don't think that's the case this year, personally. I think that assists are scarce enough. I think that blocks, if you can get them with other stuff, that's why I like somebody like Jabari Smith. He will get you some blocks, but he's also good enough to get 15 points per game.
Yes, that's why I like Jabari Smith too, especially for my roster, which is a rebound and blocks build, which is funny that this
Shameless plug.
What did I want to say? One more. I lost it.
Anyway. We want to get back to Zeke.
Oh, right, no. Assists and turnovers loosely correlate. That's why I'm not a fan. Sorry.
Oh, no. That's
usage correlates with turnovers. That's pretty common. I mean, it depends on how good of a playmaker guy is, but generally usage correlates with turnovers. And also usage correlates with assists. They loosely correlate. There's a loose correlation there, and because of that, a lot of times you'll win assists but lose turnovers, especially if you win big.
We could do this all day. I think we could go back and forth on this.
All right,
just to answer Zeke's question to wrap this up. No, you're good. This was good. Don't get me wrong. I not sure I would panic yet, but I would wait till you have Mitch Robinson, you want to deal him. If I feel like I'm middle of the road in blocks, but I have a block specialist or a steal specialist and I'm middle of the road in steals, I would certainly be looking to trade them and solidify some areas. Zeke, I'm going to ask you next. Just go on with your hot take.
Yeah, I mean, well, this battle for the starting job of the Detroit Pistons center is gonna go to Jalen Duren, and I think it's gonna come sooner rather than later. Look, I think Isaiah Stewart still is a pretty good center, right? He has that 3-and-D potential that these owners are banking on 100% is gonna come into fold this year. But let's look at his numbers a bit. I mean, he's averaging 11 and 10 right now with 2 assists a night, but his shooting splits are abysmal. He has been terrible, honestly. And Jalen Duren, like, honestly, he's gotten a pretty decent workload right now. I mean, he's been playing in between like 16 and 21 minutes a night. And in my personal opinion, I think that if you have two really gifted guards in Ivy and Cunningham, I would rather play a style of basketball where I'm going to have a big guy setting me screens, rolling to the basket, who's physically bigger than a lot of these guys at the center position, who I think has some really unique athleticism. I feel like Duren is just going to be the guy for them to really help take this team to a playoff spot, maybe play in by the end of the year. Who knows? And also I've read so many good things about this kid's maturity. I mean, it really does seem like he is 100% invested and locked in. And look, we cannot say the same about Isaiah Stewart when he's out bashing LeBron James in the face a couple years ago.
I can't believe that happened.
I cannot believe it either. I just feel like Stewart's head really isn't in it, in my opinion. And I would go as far as to say consider dropping him. Maybe.
He's shooting 320 from the field right now.
Yeah, it's a mess. It's so hard. Like, look, last year I drafted Stewart, I think, in like my 7th or 8th round. And like I was really banking on like, I guess, the breakout. But I just don't think he's going to be that guy. That's just, I don't know how else to say it. I just don't buy it.
I tend to agree. Duren's looked really good. Is he going to look that good every night? No. But I feel like I know what Isaiah Stewart is. I like that he's shooting more threes, but I also don't like it if he's going to shoot like 20% on 5 shots from 3. I mean, he's a fine backup center. It's clear they're trying to work him into like this power forward where they can play him with Duren, but like just get a power forward.
Yeah, at this point, right? Like if you're really just going to sit around and tinker your roster for an entire season, just screw around with things.
Respectfully, Isaiah Stewart isn't good enough to convert into a forward. He's your backup center, and that's fine. He's a fine backup center for fantasy purposes. He's relevant still just because he's getting like over 20 minutes a night, but it's like hanging by a thread. I mean, I won't in 12-team leagues and 10-team leagues. He's already a drop. I doubt he was even drafted, or he might have been, but he's a drop now. Yeah. In 12-team, you could still roster him, give him another week, but I'm not that optimistic.
Yeah, again, upside. What's the upside there? He's not scoring the ball. He's not going to have high usage. Yeah, I drop him.
All right, moving on. This is honestly, I feel like all my takes have been equally sizzling, so I haven't really been adhering to our heat check index, but no matter. Dejounte Murray's a top 15 player this season. No, this is the spiciest so far. Yeah. And I put my neck on the line a week ago. I'm very fickle. I said Dejounte Murray was someone I would not draft at his current price. I'm still not necessarily against that, but it's impossible to deny what he's been doing. Currently averaging like over 3 steals a game, over 8 assists a game, 7.3 rebounds, along with nearly 20 points per game. If these numbers were to hold through a full season, he would be a top 10 player, maybe even top 5. Do I think they'll hold through a full season? No, but even with the dip, top 15, like early second-round value is basically what I'm asking in a 12-team league. Do we think that's doable? Do we think that's possible? Do we think that should happen?
I'm ready to say we were just nervous about how he was going to get integrated into the whole entire team when he went to Atlanta. But to see the fact that like Scoring stayed about the same. He's rebounding at a good rate. He's passing at a good rate. The steals right now look to be at an all-time high. I could honestly see it staying that way because he's asked to kind of condense his game a bit now to the point where, like, I do think that there is a chance 3 steals a game might hold up for a season.
That actually, it's insane to say, but the 3 steals.
I know it feels weird coming out of my mouth, but like, I do see it happening. And I do buy the fact that, like, this guy probably is a top 15 player. And if you grabbed him early in your second, I mean, you'll be pretty happy for the season, in my opinion. Like, this kid, I really do think is going to help carry Atlanta to like a top 4 seed in the East if they stay healthy. If they stay healthy, and if they eventually figure out that Clint Capella is just not your starting center of the future. I like Okongwu coming off the bench. I'd rather start him. I feel like he's a better fit for them. I feel like he'd help mold.
We just
yeah, we did talk about that. But
I love Onyeka. I am 100% with you. Clint is, I don't want to say washed, but he's not.
He just doesn't. We've tried this for like what 4 years now with Clint as your starting center, and like when we made that move a few years back, we thought, oh, it's a nice little injection into the starting 5. Why not? But like, I've seen it. I feel like they've already hit their ceiling. Like going to that conference finals run a couple years back. Yeah, I'm ready to kind of switch it up.
You know, one nice thing about the steals is like when he's playing next to the human turnstile Trae Young, you know he'll be playing the best offensive player every night. So you know he'll be playing high usage guys with the balls in their hand and the opportunity for steals. I feel like the steals are more. I feel like maintaining that 3 steals a night is more reasonable than like the boards assists. Am I crazy? Like he's that good a defender, and he's in the situation for it with the fast pace of the Hawks.
Completely, 100% agree.
A lot of offensive possessions to go around there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't a fan of Dejounte Murray before the season. I think he's top 25. I think top 15 is a hot take. I think that's his upside. But, yeah, I agree. He's going to be an elite fantasy option for the year. He's going to be just as good as he was last year with a little bit of a lower usage. And then that's it.
I called him a bust a week ago, so I can't completely go back on that.
I think he's going to be better than last year, in my opinion. I think, again, like what I was saying. No, I'm not saying stat-wise. I'm saying efficiency. Okay. I think efficiency.
This is a fantasy show. I don't care about – I don't watch the games, Zeke.
That's going to favor my team, though, if he's efficient.
I don't watch the games.
Hey, I'm a field goal free throw percentage team. We're just trying to keep our shooting splits solid for the year. We'll see where it takes me. We're experimenting.
I do watch the games, but I haven't gotten around to the Hawks. That's on the docket. I don't like the Hawks, but I got to give respect where it's due. It looks like they made a good move, and I'm excited to see what they can do objectively. All right. I think it's Kevin's turn in the rotation. Kevin, spicy.
Okay. My spicy take, and this is biased, let me be honest. Lauri Markkanen will end up as a top 40 player by the end of this fantasy season. Let me get into that. As you mentioned earlier, Brian, the West is weak. The West is real weak. And you look at that Jazz roster and you think, it's really not that bad. There's no one that's really standing out to you, but you got guys like Mike Conley, Jordan Clarkson, Colin Sexton at the guard position. You have Walker Kessler. You have Kelly Olynyk. There's some nice bigs. Walker Kessler was drafted in the first round this year. That's a nice backup defensive big. And Kelly Olynyk is a nice complementary piece in the front court. And you look at that team and you think, they're obviously not going to contend, but they can contend for they're not going to contend for a title, but they can contend for a play-in spot. They can certainly, win about 38 to 41 games this year. I could see that happening. And with Lauri Markkanen's usage so far being by far the highest on the team, and his impressive display of shooting and scoring and rebound, I'm getting a little excited here. Don't test me, but his impressive display of shooting and rebounding. What is he averaging? 21 and 8 right now with solid defensive stats for what he is. I think Lauri Markkanen can sustain about 20 and 8 and a few assists and nice defensive stats. Maybe not the greatest rates, but I think he'll be an elite asset, especially at the small forward position, which is the weakness of fantasy.
Where did people draft him? Like 70th, between
80,
70th and 100th?
I think I got him in like the 8th round.
Yeah, like 7th to 9th round is probably where he was going, and that looks like great value right now. Can't deny it. I'm going to temper your expectations on the Jazz play-in experiment. Listen, the thing that keeps me optimistic most about Lowry is not actually what he does on the court. It's the fact that he's making money, so they can't just release or trade him. They are going to trade anyone making under $5 million a year. I am put it to the book. Danny Ainge does not want a play-in spot this year. I agree. The roster talent's not awful.
That is a good point.
Sexton isn't starting. It tells you that they're kind of deep.
Another guy I drafted.
That one I'm not feeling too high about.
No, me neither. He's close to the waiver wire for me.
Yeah, but you'd think they could maybe try and trade Conley. I know he makes a bit, but he'd be so good on so many contending teams.
Lakers.
Oh, we'll get to them. So I think that also I said contending teams. The thing about the Jazz is that isn't a bad thing for Lowry, is what I'm going to say. Like, even if they trade everyone, that might actually be, because you said the rates aren't really a thing anyways. Who cares?
Yeah. I'm not drafting him to shoot 50% from the field.
Now, am I going to say, like, oh, they trade X, Y, and Z, and then he adds 5 points to his scoring average? No, but I think it'll be more consistent night-per-night basis, because I can still see scenarios where Lowry has, like, 10-point, 12-point nights. Just because there's a lot of mouths to feed. He hasn't yet cemented himself as the alpha, but we're getting there. I'd feel very good if I got him around where you got him, 7th to 9th round. Felt like good value at the time, and it's looking like that now.
Yeah, I mean, you drafted him, I think, for the opportunity that he was going to have this year. And right now, I mean, like what you guys were saying, it looks like he's living up to it in every which way. Will he be able to maintain it for the season? We'll see. But, yeah, owners got to be pretty happy about where they drafted him and what they're getting right now.
Yeah. All right. Zeke.
This one's a little spicier, I think.
Zach under. Sorry. Never mind.
A fantasy misconception. Look, he got his deal. He's a happy man, right? Like, he got paid. Everything looks good for Zach. And then the knee injury thing is back now. And, he missed the first game of the season. And, he played 2 games already. And look, you're still getting the same-ish Zach numbers, like 20-ish points a game. But in my opinion, it doesn't feel like his team anymore. I feel like Zach's the second option. I feel like it's DeMar's now. I just don't think that for where you're going to draft Zach, you're probably going to be expecting the points. You're going to be expecting the field goal percentage and the 3-point percentage and threes made a game. But I just don't feel like Zach LaVine at this point in his career is a guy that you could 100% rely on to play more than 70 games a year. And if I'm thinking the top 3 guys I'm going to be taking in my draft, I just don't. He's not one of those guys for me anymore. I honestly think that, these injuries have piled up on him over the years. And I just don't think that I think his time has come and gone kind of thing to take that superstar-esque step. And I'm not saying he would be a top 10 player in the league, but like to be enough of a star to kind of like take this team into like a deep extended playoff run. I feel like that time's gone. I feel like Zach LaVine's already like gone over the hill. I'd love to hear what you guys have.
Yeah, just fantasy wise, he's a solid. Here's what Zach LaVine is. He's not. I think you're right. He's not the alpha on the Bulls anymore. At least he's not a clear alpha. He's one of the guys. He's one of the guys. He's one of their stars, but he's not the star. He's a very good scorer, elite scorer. He's going to give you 22 to 24 points a night. He's not a particularly good rebounder or playmaker, but he's not going to really hurt you there either. He'll give you about 4 in each boards and assists this year, I think. Fine for defensive stats. Not a great defender in real life, but fine for defensive stats. And a high volume, good 3-point shooter. So what is that? he's really good. He's just, I think you're right. His upside isn't there, and he's kind of just a nice 4th, 5th round fantasy scorer, especially when you consider his injuries, where he might be resting a lot if he rested the first game of the year.
Well, that's what I wanted to get to. The fact that I even have to hear about the dreaded 2 words, load management, this early in the year for a phantom injury nobody had any idea he had. What's going on there? Yeah. No, like the on-court stuff is worth discussing. I think DeMar might have taken over. Very valid. But that's what scares me the most, like above everything else. The fact that we're talking, we have to manage his knee. Where was this in the preseason? How long did they know about this?
No,
and if he just injured it. Why is he playing at all?
It really does feel like this could potentially be like the storyline of the season for Zach.
Yeah.
Because, like, again, it just kind of came out of nowhere. Where, like, these reports all of a sudden come out about, like, this injured knee. And now I'm like, well, I guess it would have been nice to know that maybe, like, 2-3 weeks ago before I'm trying to plan out, like, my draft.
It's not bad enough where he has to sit out for an extended time, but it's not good enough where they can play him that often.
Yeah, and the Bulls...
Nobody knows when it happened. Nobody knows.
No,
I don't know.
They've been saying very little, too, about the whole
It's so vague. It's so dumb. I hate it. And it's not even just fantasy-wise. Like, it's somebody I enjoy to watch play. And if he's really injured, then sit him. If he's not really injured, then why are you load managing?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's just kind of the point. With the limited upside and his injury history and this new injury, I think there's no reason to latch on to Zach LaVine right now. I have no reason to trade for him, at least. I do want to say, though, he's listed as a small forward and a shooting guard. And those are the 2 most valuable positions in fantasy, I feel. So there's that, but he's still not worth it. Not right now. I wouldn't take him. No.
Not worth the headache to me. Tough. I said we'd get to them. I said we would. Did I not? The Lakers are the worst team in California. All right. So defending champs and Clippers, no doubt they're better. So this is really, are the Lakers worse than the Kings? And this is a really fun thought experiment I had last night. I was like, Okay, hear me out. One team has maybe the greatest player of all time and maybe the greatest street clothes player of all time. The other team, and maybe the greatest construction worker of all time. The Kings actually have a basketball team that makes sense, that like logically you can understand kind of what they're doing. Oh, we have a really good point guard. Oh, we have a decent offensive, completely useless defensively, center. Oh, we have shooters. Now, I know what people are going to say. Oh, the Kings are 0-3. They suck. I'll query you with this. The Lakers suck too, and they also don't make sense, and they have big egos. All right. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why I'm right.
I think you're right. I mean, like, look. You could have talent, right? You have Bron, you have AD. Arguably still, right now, the best.
Are you forgetting another future Hall of Famer?
You mean Mr. Trip Dub Machine? Yeah, Brody. Let's just leave his name unsaid for a bit. All right. So
I'm gonna end up defending Westbrook by the end of the year too. It's gonna be an arc.
Yeah. But pretty much what I'm trying to say is like, look, when LeBron has been successful, what do you have to put around him? Shooting. He needs to have options around him for when he's going to penetrate towards the basket to kick the ball out, and then there'll be somebody on the 3-point line to make the shot. He has none of that. This Lakers team has been one of the worst in 3-point shooting, in 3-pointers made, in percentage for the entire season so far. And yes, it's been only a very small sample size, but they might be the worst 3-point shooting team in the league for this entire season if they keep the same roster type. And we know some moves are going to come eventually as we progress into it, but I just love what the Kings are doing way more than what the Lakers are doing. It honestly felt like Brian and I were talking about this. Like, this year in itself is going to be the LeBron James 20th anniversary appreciation tour. And however the season looks, it's going to come out that way.
Who cares?
Exactly.
Seriously. And that's not a knock on LeBron. Like, if I'm a Lakers fan, oh, great. Like, I can celebrate LeBron's greatness.
No, the Kings are actually trying to do something the Lakers clearly have not even an effort into like having some sort of turnaround.
Okay, so the Lakers, in every way, should be better. Like, I mean, if we're being honest with ourselves, it's insane that you're actually right.
It's insane it's come to this.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just thinking. While Zeke was making his take, I'm thinking like, oh man, they're the worst constructed team in the NBA. They're the most poorly constructed team in the NBA, man. They got LeBron, right? You have LeBron James, and you mess it up. So, okay. Anthony Davis is great. He's great, but he's not the best star to complement LeBron. Like, it's great. I mean, it's hard to say that when they've won a championship together, but at this point in their careers, I mean, they're two individual great talents, but as Zeke said, without shooting around them, and today's NBA, I mean, they're two older, aging stars. I don't see why the rest of the roster is constructed the way it is. I mean, Lonnie Walker was there. I don't know what was in their heads, but he was their shooting addition this year, I believe. Like, that's who they thought was going to help them shoot.
Not very good.
No, not very good at all. Looking at obviously Russell Westbrook. I mean, you have some nice perimeter defending guards, but when you can't score at all because Russell Westbrook is the worst piece for this offense. He's the worst piece for this offense, especially when he's not even willing to go to the bench and run the offense from the bench. Right? As a piece next to LeBron James and Anthony Davis on the court, it's a terrible basketball team. It's a lot of talent on the court, but it's just so poorly constructed and so poorly ran that you're right. The Kings are actually a better basketball team right now. They don't have nearly the amount of talent, but nonetheless, they're a better team.
I did this all in reverse. This was my mild take. And I will say in defense of the Kings, because I think this is worth noting. So they lost a tough one. They've been in very close games whole season. Lost a 2-point game against the Clippers. Lost a 5-point game on the road against the Warriors. Yes, they're 0-3, but they put up a better fight, I think, than the Lakers. And the team makes sense. Logically, I can understand what they're doing, even if they don't have the pieces talent-wise that the Lakers do. It's a mess. All right. I can't keep talking about this clown show. Who am I kidding? I totally could. But the people need to hear some more hot takes. Oh, I think we're up to Zeke. Zeke, yeah.
The Pelicans aren't going to be a dark horse this year, okay? Like, they're a legit, bona fide contender at this point. I buy it, okay? I love the big three. I love the addition of CJ coming in. I love to see a healthy Zion who's not going to have crazy volume. I actually love the idea of Brandon Ingram being the number one option for the team. And here's why. I think Brandon expands your offensive game a bit more. I feel like, again, the 3-level scoring ability is pretty nice. And, it also helps that you have like a bona fide bruiser in the paint of Zion who's going to clean up every single missed shot that you take. I love it. And I feel like they have a nice blend of vet experience to go with some of these young talent they have, like Trey Murphy, Nolan, Herb Jones. I mean, there's a plethora of young talent that they have who each have their own respective skill sets to the point where I'm like, well, let's look at what you need to have for a championship team. You need to have some sort of solidified star core. They got that. You need to have some sort of depth. Got that. Young guys, got that. Vet experience, got that. Good coach, got that. The only thing that they really have going against them at this point is that the franchise notoriously hasn't been run the best. But, like, hey, now it looks to be like maybe they're starting to put something together. If they're healthy and they could get Zion to play about 75 games plus, yeah, they're going to have pretty good seeding, I think. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them make that deep run that a lot of people have been saying for the Pelicans is just non-existent. But, like, this might be the year. Really might be. Where they just kind of, like, blow the roof off their expectations, put something really special together and go for it. Because there's a lot of dudes on their bench also who have all of the intangible tools. Like, they have some really interesting players. And also Dyson Daniels.
Alvarado. Sorry, don't mean to.
I love Bronx's finest.
That out there. Jose Alvarado.
There's a funny Jose Alvarado story, but I'll get to you guys. Kevin, Pelicans thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. They're a really well constructed roster, and last year we saw teams like the Grizzlies. They took that step up, and I think this year the Pelicans can be the next Grizzlies. I also want to point out, I think this team really changed and really took a step up roster wise when they traded for CJ McCollum. I think that was a great trade for them, and I think we're going to see that this year as he's going to be their top shooting option.
My quick Jose Alvarado story. I just sat near his family when the Pelicans blew out the Knicks at MSG, and they were just as into it as he was on the court. Fantastic. They were pissing off so many Knicks fans. So, yeah, I can't disagree. The only thing stopping this team is health. I mean, we're already dealing with Zion hip contusion stuff. Ingram is in concussion protocol, I believe.
Yeah.
So that's weird. That's not fun. The good is, I don't know if you mentioned Trey Murphy. Trey Murphy's look fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's sick.
The depth they've built up, Dyson Daniels, I know you said, I love that kid. I don't know if he'll be a big impact guy this year, but they don't really need him to be, barring crazy injuries. And yeah, McCollum is the captain of the ship. He's the veteran they needed. And he's a point guard now, which we all thought he was just that kind of scrawny shooter. Not scrawny, but you know what I mean? That lanky shooter in Portland. He's not. He was just doing that because Dame's Dame. He can ball handle. He can grab boards. He can dish it out. And it's fun to watch. There's no reason to think in a very weak West this can't be a top 4 seed.
Absolutely. So to get into my team take, I have a take on a certain Eastern Conference pretender. The Philadelphia 76ers will struggle to make the playoffs this year and might fall even to be a play-in team. I think James Harden and Tyrese Maxey are one of the best backcourt combos offensively in the league, and obviously Joel Embiid is a tank in the paint. I just think they're not a very well constructed roster. I think defensively they're going to struggle. I think offensively they're not very fluent, even though talent wise, James Harden's one of the best. I mean, he's a top 3 playmaker in the NBA, and he's obviously a great high volume scorer still, even though he's not what he used to be. And Joel Embiid is the best paint scorer in the league as big. And Tyrese Maxey's fantastic too. I don't think they gel very well. Tobias Harris has no real role, and I think defensively they're going to get tired out quickly. And I think they're going to, at least in the regular season, I think they'll struggle in a very strong Eastern Conference. I think they're actually a better playoff team, but play-in wise, if they make the playoffs, if they get through the play-in, but in the regular season, I think that in the regular season they'll struggle. And I just don't think they're very deep.
It's very hard for me right now to say that they won't make it, but I see exactly the logic and argument you put together for why they will not. Look, the Sixers have drastically failed to live up to any sort of expectations they had going into the season, right? I mean, they were projected to be I think the top team in the East at the end of the year. I mean, on some people's mock standings.
Yeah.
I saw some title hype.
Yeah, exactly. Right
last year?
No, this year title hype.
No, I know, I got that. I said after last year.
I didn't hear that. Yeah.
Well, I guess they were banking on the idea of a full season, and James Harden is going to kind of.
He's looked good.
He has looked good, and they still haven't been playing that well.
And they've been bad.
Yeah, that's my concern.
Well,
yes.
That's where I'm at, and to agree with you, Kevin. Yeah, I don't know. We've seen it. We see what we're working with here, and it looks absolutely terrible. There's no chemistry on this roster right now. And it's a little scary to think about when you have a generational center on your team who you are just completely wasting his talents. And the craziest thing is too, he's 100% invested in this. There's no other place he's looking to do this in. He really
healthy.
Yeah, and he's healthy. So it's just
once
at this point, I want to wait and see, but I am definitely extremely nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah, what is Tobias? I don't think that should go.
He's wasting cap space and the team's potential.
Now that's a bust pick. I am not going back on him. I'm doubling down on that. But also, I mean, Joel's looks slow. I know big men kind of struggle to start off the season sometimes. He's not looked like Joel. I think they'll get it right. But yeah, if you told me this will be like a 6 to 7 seed,
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
you're not insane. I will. The only caveat I'll say is they're not the only Eastern power that's looked bad right now. I mean, the Heat are 1-3, a very low key 1-3, but they're 1-3. They couldn't even beat the Raptors without Siakam last night, I believe. Unless I'm crazy. And the Nets are 1-2 as well. Yeah, no, they lost to the Raptors last night.
I wouldn't consider the Nets a power in the East. I wouldn't consider Nets particularly better than the Sixers if we want to go there.
I am not sure which one of them is better. I just know they'll both be entertaining.
Yes, agreed.
More entertaining team, Nets or Lakers?
Lakers.
Yeah, I'd have to go with the Lakers.
The Lakers are crazy because they're so entertaining off the court, and they're like a chore to watch on the court.
No, they're horrible. They're the worst team to watch. They're so
like,
bad.
They're like the Room of – it's like so bad it's good. Maybe it has to be a higher budget blockbuster that failed. I don't know. They're a joke. Anyways, I didn't want to make this into just Laker bashing. Yeah, I think it's very reasonable. I think Sixers are in worry. All right, I think that's going to wrap it up for a very fun hour-long edition. A lot of hot takes. I got to cleanse my palate. I got to drink some milk. I got to chug some milk after that. So very fun show. We'll be back sometime next week with more. A lot to talk about. We'll have a better understanding of just what the hell is going on in a week's time. Thanks for tuning in. For Kevin and Zeke, I'm Brian. Always a pleasure. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for stopping by the office. Get your fantasy prescription by subscribing to the channel and checking out drroto.com. And until the next visit, be well and take care.